Just arriving back from my experience on my road bike this morning. I have a routine that I follow daily, roughly 5 to 6 days a week. 4:30, wake up. Takes me about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes to put my outfit on. The outfit I wear is typically the standard. You'd think I was going out to do a fondue or something to that effect because I put all the gear on. So I'm waking up, I'm putting on the tights, I'm putting on the helmets, I'm putting on the shoes, I'm putting the clips, I'm putting on sensors. I've used so many sensors over the years that it technically has turned my body into a sensor. Um, Now, why do we use sensors? Well, I tend to use them because I tend to have to feel like I have to rely on some relative circumstance to try to determine what my results are when it comes to riding my bike. Um, I depend on the Garmin systems. I've got multiple systems for, I want to say, your speed, cadence, power. I don't tend to buy bikes with all of that process already connected, but I did make the adjustment. So this particular bike here is what I call my training bike. I use this bike every day. I just recently on Monday switched the aluminum wheels back on it because the weather's starting to change. I took the carbon wheels off. Carbon wheels are expensive, as you know. If you're in this business of road biking, you can pay almost as much for a set of carbon wheels as the bike costs. Um, as indicated, this is my training bike, and in the winter, because of the costs of those wheels and the fact that I do run through quite a few potholes and irregular streets. These streets, they're hilly and they've got comparable bumps and bruises in the streets to, your bike will go through a severe shattering on some of those areas that I ride through, even though it's all paved. I don't do trails. I'm on the street, early in the morning. I mean, traffic has just gotten horrendous in the United States. It's like everywhere you go now. 10 years ago, you could have went on the street and there would have been 2 or 3 cars all day. But, people are looking for GPS systems to find shorter routes. And a lot of those little sanctuary roads are now tattered with vehicles, bumper to bumper. I kind of feel that when I'm out there, I have to be at my best defense to try to avoid any kind of consequence of any type of accident or problem on the road because you have to protect yourself. Wear your helmet by all means. I know when I first started riding bikes, geez, I started back when I was a kid, but as an adult, I used to get out there for about 2 years without even using a helmet. I just put a baseball hat on my head. And I don't know, I had a very close contact one time with an automobile scraping my leg. And it did hit me, but it didn't, it wasn't a bone damage or anything like that. It was basically just a bruise from the car striking the leg. And then I thought about it and I said, you know what? This might be a warning sign that I need to start wearing helmets. I just didn't like wearing helmets, but I'm definitely liking wearing them now because it is very necessary. I think in a lot of states, it's the law now. So you do need to wear your helmet. This bike being my training bike, I purchased this bike, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago. At that time, it was probably like 40, I don't know, just at 4,000, 39, 99, 99 or something like that. But it was supposed to have been a full carbon bike. I found out that the seat wasn't carbon. Learned that the handlebars weren't carbon, but I did like the handlebar feel. I think it's like an aluminum type composition in the handlebars. Not too heavy. I mean, the bike itself, It's not heavy like you're going to get with a aluminum and especially a steel bike. But I took a lot of the standard features that came with the bike off. And when I say standard, I'm talking about wheels. I mean, I still have the original wheels on it. Kind of have them in a situation where they're aluminum at this point, but I did get some very nice carbon wheels. The seat, I did change the seat. I went to a carbon seat. The seat that was on there was similar to the seat that you're looking at now, but it did not have the indention in the center. It had an indention, but with not a pass through. So pretty much, it lost that weight, and it was just amazing when I took the seat out of the box when I first purchased it. The huge difference in the weight from the seat that was on the bike. The seat that came with the bike sort of looked like this seat. It just didn't have that hole in the center. But the weight was just unbelievable difference. This is a carbon seat, so it is very lightweight. You don't even know it's underneath you when you're riding the bike. I think I think that's about it when it comes to things that I actually added to the bike. But I have to say I do use a lot of bike computers. So you're looking at now what is called a Garmin 1040. I just basically purchased this one here because I've had a 1030 for about maybe 6 years. It, for the most part, was pretty good. I did basically have a pet peeve with it, being that when I do my rides, I'm usually going 35, 40 miles each morning. And I've been doing that for years. So I tend to want to keep my stats. It's always just, for me, therapeutic to look at the stats. Just 1 million calories burned, probably 40 to 45,000 miles on this bike alone. But the 1030, sometimes it would glitch up, and it was probably my fault because I had probably too many different programs. I tend to have quite a few different programs on there for riding, and these do not give you a whole lot of memory. Memory is very small. I mean, it's been a mystery in my mind why the memories are so small on this, but you down 5 or 6 programs and your memory is gone. And I always took it to the limit and ran out of memory. The computer had a card in it, but the card was only good basically for transferring routes and everything like that. So you couldn't expand the memory or anything like that on the device, and it would always just run out of memory. And then basically at some point it started glitching, freezing up, didn't want to work. And I finally had to reset it. And of course, I read in the manual, it says if you reset it, then you don't lose your information that's already there, but you will lose your settings. Well, it turns out that was not true. Also, another thing that happened, that when I did get the new one, it said that it'll transfer your information from one unit to the other. Yeah, it's true. It will transfer your information. Problem is, not all of it. So I want to say I had 40 something thousand miles, over 1 million calories burned. I mean, all of those important stats that I wanted to take over, I want to say 2%, maybe even less, transferred over to the new unit. Yeah, things transferred, but it was basically the minute areas like your settings. But when it came to the history, circumstances on the bike, all of your rides, it just chose to do like 1 or 2%, and everything else was gone. It didn't transfer, and it wouldn't transfer. So my thing was, I says, well, I guess, with the lower parameters of memory, I guess that's what caused it. I mean, I didn't have time to call Garmin or and I'm sure they probably factored into the sales of their devices. They know people are busy, they don't have time to call or whatever have you. But my problem was I just refused to spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out why it didn't transfer, and I just said, you know what, oh well, it's gone. I do use, the Garmin Connect system. Not as much now. I mean, it's still calculating, collecting information or whatever have you, but I don't really use it for the scope that a lot of people do. I guess I don't get the gratification from it. It uploads your information, but there's not a whole lot of information there that has any value to me. And I'm kind of like a pick up and go person. I want to be able to access my device hands on and move on, and pretty much spending a lot of time messing around with computer apps and all that. It's just time consuming for me. So yeah, I was a little disappointed when those numbers didn't transfer, but I want to say I got this 1040 maybe 3 months ago, and this thing's already got like 6,000 miles on it. So who knows? At the rates, I mean, I do some weekends, just weekend riding all weekend long. Start early Saturday morning, and I may be out there depending on where I go, because I do tend to travel with this bike. It's expensive drive. I mean, to take these bikes with you. So, unless you're one that likes to drive across the country in automobiles with stuff packed up in your car, that's probably the easier way to do it. But time's always a factor for me. So I end up having to pack this up and have it flown. And it used to be fairly acceptable for me to do that, but I got to tell you now, airlines, it's just like everything has gone, just skyrocketed. So it's expensive now, but I want to say probably 6 weeks ago, I was in the California region in the past Oxnard, took a couple of trips into the mountainous area there, back and forth to California. It was enjoyable. I'm glad I did it. The weather was great. I was glad I did it. It was a good little release. And I had the ability to take care of some things from my residence, and I was able to get some things done while I was in the process of getting that exercise in. But I don't know about most people, but for me, bike riding is just something I just became addicted to, some years ago. And here I am. I'm still doing this. And, I have a lot of times, a lot of my friends, the first thing they'll ask me when they talk to me, are you still riding that bike? And yeah, I mean, it's like it kind of surprises me, because it's like they ask and I'm thinking, I have to think for a second. I'm like, yeah, because it's so second nature. That I don't think about it. So it tends to advise me. You can hear the 1040 going off there in the background. I'm getting messages. I've been getting a couple of messages, so I apologize if that did interfere with your communication here. But yes, my other bike, it is a much more expensive bike. I tend not to even take that out unless I'm participating in some kind of a function, or just want to get out there on a nice day and just take a easier ride, as opposed to ramming it down the street like I do this one here. This bike here, I've gotten this thing up probably like 60 something miles, 65. I think the highest number was like 69 miles an hour on this bike one time. I'm not doing that anymore. I realized after I got done, when I saw the speedometer, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, I'm not going to do that again, because these bikes, they're mechanical, they're man-made. I mean, anything is susceptible. I've had wheels crash for no reason at all, just collapse. And when that happens, you're going down, you're coming off of that bike. I mean, and it was an aluminum wheel, not even a carbon wheel. So when that happened, then that's when I switched over to carbon. But my understanding, carbon can be even more susceptible to collapses and breaks or splits. I hit a lot of potholes, and I know that's what causes it. But the streets, a lot of the streets are just, they're in some need for some repair, and a lot of times between you and the traffic, you don't have a lot of time to react to trying to get around that pothole, that indention, or whatever the case may be. But when that bike hits it, it just reverberates through the entire bike. It's like the whole bike is affected. So you can have a front fork that hits that hole and it doesn't really impact it at all, but that reverberation just, it sort of just tatters all through the bike, and you may end up with some fracture or crack or something in your carbon. So when you hit those holes, I mean, my priority always is, once I do hit them, either to stop if I feel like it's severe, or when I get back. I hate to stop my ride. I like to keep going, but sometimes it's hard. It's like you just want to keep your momentum and keep your pace and everything like that. And probably not the smartest idea. You probably should stop, pull over, take a look, and see what's going on or whatever.